Smart City Expo here in Dubai. My name is Rizwan Hussain, and I'm the government industry leader for IBM's Middle East and Africa business. Look, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to really share my point of view on smart cities. And as I do that, there are three fundamental things that I want to share with you today. The first thing that I want to talk about is really set the context of what we see happening from a global perspective in smart cities. And that's where I'm going to talk about the opportunities, the challenges, and really the focus that we see for city leaders around the world. The second big area that I want to tackle today is talk about capabilities that we believe are fundamental to really driving the transformation and innovation for cities. And then the third area is really talk about some use cases, some client examples to bring the smart city vision into life and really give you a sense of how we see cities moving forward. So let's get started. What are the challenges and opportunities that we see from a global perspective? Four global trends that we see. Trend number one is what we call urbanization, or the massive influx of people that are moving into cities from towns and villages. According to the World Bank, by 2050, about 70% of the world's population will live in cities and urban areas. Trend number two is inadequate infrastructure. So when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about all kinds of infrastructure that a city needs to operate. This could be transportation infrastructure, it's water management infrastructure, energy and building systems, public safety and security systems, healthcare systems, social welfare systems, and so on. And according to McKinsey Quarterly, there will be about $56 trillion that will be made in infrastructure investments between now and 2030. So significant amounts of money that will be invested in both aging infrastructure and creating new infrastructure going forward. The third fundamental trend that we see is really around increased threats. Increased threats both from a terrorism perspective, but then also natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tsunami, heavy rainfalls, and so on. And if you look at the last 15 years, about 1.1 billion people have been impacted because of natural disasters. And obviously this has led to a significant amount of property and material damage as well. And then the fourth key trend that we see is really it's a new emerging trend. It's a trend that we call the co-opetition between cities. So traditionally what we've seen is that cities have competed with one another for talent, for tourism, for economic investment. But more and more now, what we see is that cities are looking to collaborate with one another. You see this in the form of regional alliances, the GCC regional alliance that's being developed. We certainly saw this earlier in the year at Transform Africa, where you had 15 different heads of states really looking to work together and collaborate around the development of smart cities. And we're certainly seeing this in other parts of the world, certainly in Europe, where cities are looking to collaborate, and then also in the United States as well. So these are the four fundamental themes that we see when you think about the development of cities globally. So when we talk to city leaders around the world, there's one fundamental theme that emerges, I'd say 99 to 100% of the time. And city leaders often tell me it's all about the citizen. When you think about Dubai, it's all about making the citizen happy. You know, the fundamental things that we see city leaders talking about, they certainly focus on, how do you really cater to the high and the increasing demands for more personalized services, the greater expectation that citizens have in today's economy. It's also about how you engage with citizens to really deliver from a reliability and a quality perspective when you deliver certain services. When you think about citizens, citizens are more actively engaged today using social media and mobile tools. And so they're active online 24/7. And that's the kind of dilemma that city leaders now need to contend with. And we also believe as a company that city leaders really have a responsibility to provide the convenience, the quality of life, the economic opportunity to citizens. So when you think about the world that we live in today, it's about being able to engage with citizens on their terms and on their time. And when you think about government, it's one of those industries that has lagged a little bit. You know, think about retail, think about some of the work that Ittisalat just spoke about from a fintech perspective, certainly more advanced, but government leaders, government entities have lagged a little bit in terms of creating that personalization from a citizen perspective. So certainly one of the big themes that we see now as we talk to government leaders is how do you better engage with citizens, how do you communicate more effectively with them, and how do you collaborate with them as you look ahead. So, you know, I've had the opportunity to work in a number of different markets, certainly in the United States, Europe, Asia Pacific region, now more recently in the Middle East and Africa region. And you know, I speak with a lot of city leaders, and I also speak with a lot of different partners within the ecosystem. And one of the things we often struggle with in the smarter city context is really defining what a smart city is. And what IBM has tried to do is really try and create what we call a more holistic view of a smarter city. So for us, a smarter city is what we call the 3 I's. It's a city that is instrumented, it's a city that is interconnected, and it's a city that is intelligent. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. By instrumentation, we're talking about all the different levels of instrumentation that you have within your environment. It's the devices, the meters, the video cameras, the data that you have coming in from social media and so on. So the instrumentation is all about how do you capture all the different data that exist across all the different domains, across public safety, across mobility, across water management, and so on and so forth. From there onwards, it's about creating the interconnection, right? And this is where we see, the networks, the fiber, the broadband, the Wi-Fi, the satellite networks that really create the interconnection between people, processes, and systems. And then once you've got the interconnection and the instrumentation in place, then that's where you can actually become intelligent. That's where you actually use analytical, predictive capabilities to be able to be more intelligent, more proactive in your decision making from a government perspective. And when you think about this whole dilemma of the smart city, you know, there are different kinds of companies that play across these different levels, these 3 I's. You know, when you think about instrumentation, we certainly see companies like Huawei, Siemens, Nokia certainly was in that space. So a lot of companies that are pretty strong in there. When we think about the interconnection, that's where you have the telco operators, the DOOs, the Ittisalats, the Saudi Telecom, the Verizons, you know, all these different telco operators that have a very strong presence that are critical, quite frankly, to building the smart city and the ecosystem. And then where IBM typically plays is really on the intelligence layer, right? So we're primarily a data company, we're a business analytics company, we are a cognitive company. It's once you have all the data, how do you bring all that data together now to make more intelligent decisions about what needs to happen within the city? So again, the key theme that I want you to take away from this slide is that when you think about a smart city is about building the right kind of ecosystem with all these different kinds of partners. You know, with the telco operators that do it this a lot, with the instrumentation companies, right, like Huawei and so on, and bringing together obviously the power that IBM can bring from a data and analytics perspective. So it's really about building the right kind of ecosystem to do the development of a smart city. So vibrant cities are realizing their full potential by integrating across domains. When you think about a city is really what we call a system of systems or a system of domains. Domains such as public safety, mobility, water management, energy and building systems, and so on and so forth, right? And the reality is when an activity happens within a city, it has an impact across all these different domains. So think about what happened in New York City a few years back. They had an electricity blackout, right? So the electricity blackout certainly had an impact on the traffic light system, which went down. It also had an impact on public safety and security because crime potentially went up. Their hospital network system went down. So again, one event, and this is not as big an event as potentially a natural disaster, an earthquake or a hurricane that happens in a city, but the whole message here is that an event that happens within a city has an impact across the different domains. So what you've got to create as a city is really what we call a smart city platform that is embedded across three main capabilities. The first capability is being able to bring together the data across all these disparate domains, right? All these different silo domains such as public safety and water management and transportation and so on. So what you want to do is be able to bring together all these different kinds of data so you can create a holistic view of what is happening in your city environment. Once you've done that, you then want to use the power of analytics, predictive, cognitive capabilities to become more intelligent about decisions around the city, to be more proactive as you respond to events and incidents, to be more targeted in terms of how you address citizen needs, and really to be able to optimize the infrastructure capacity within your city. And then the third fundamental capability that we see is, once you've got all that, to how you actually drive the collaboration across the different government agencies. So this is a fundamental problem that we see across governments, is that government departments, government agencies are very siloed and tend not to work together. So breaking down those silos, driving the coordination and the collaboration of activity is fundamental to the success of a smart city initiative. In addition to that, obviously, we see more and more the active engagement for citizens. How you engage, how you collaborate, how you communicate back to citizens in times of crisis, in times of events and incidents that happen within a city environment. So we believe smart city is a journey, right? And there's a fundamental thinking that IBM had. If you look at how IBM has been talking about cities, we call it smarter cities. We don't call it a smart city because we don't believe there is any smart city in the world. We believe it's a journey and it's going to be an evolution that's going to happen over time. Hence the use of the word smarter. And when you think about a smarter city, what we see governments really investing in are across these three dimensions. It's about developing really an environment of open government, right? There's certain cities that are way ahead of the curve when it comes to the cities like Amsterdam, city of Boston, city of San Francisco, doing a lot from an open government perspective. Everything around open data, open innovation, open source, open systems, open APIs, and so on and so forth. So big theme there that we see from an open government perspective. The second thing that we see cities doing is really infusing what we call innovative capabilities, right? Infusing new capabilities such as blockchain that I know my colleague from Etisalat spoke about. Infusing artificial intelligence and cognitive systems, infusing IoT technology, infusing social and mobile technology, and then obviously using cloud as a basis for new business model innovation. So really these are the kinds of new innovative capabilities that we see cities more and more investing in. Dubai is a great example of this. If you think about what Dubai is doing, Sheikh Mohammed has absolutely made some of these as his core pillars to developing Dubai as a smart city. There's certainly a very strong agenda for blockchain. There's a strong agenda for artificial intelligence and what we at IBM call cognitive. There's a whole strategy around IoT. So again, some of the key elements that we have in here are being very well received. In fact, part of the strategic plan for Dubai as they move towards a smart city. And then the third big area that we see cities really trying to focus on is the whole idea of developing a collaborative operating model. And this happens in a couple of different ways. It's developing a collaborative operating model in terms of breaking down the silos and collaborating with different government agencies. But it also means that you are able to collaborate with the various constituencies within your city, with the citizens, to collaborate with them to come up with new ideas and co-create new services through hackathons, through jams, through new ways of working together in a collaborative manner. But it's also collaborating with academic institutions, with private enterprise, with NGOs, and so on and so forth. So again, being able to put together and build a collaborative operating model is fundamental to really building the vision of smart cities as we look ahead. So I want to now shift gears and talk a little bit about two or three client examples, case studies that we've seen quite successful from a smart city perspective. This case study is about something that is happening right here in Dubai, and really the domain of economic development. What Dubai has done is created a government service called Saad, and it's really the first government service powered by artificial intelligence that is targeted to investors and entrepreneurs. And really the whole concept behind this is you can actually go and ask, if you're an investor or an entrepreneur, you can go and ask all kinds of questions that you may have about potentially setting up a business. It could be questions around licensing requirements, the registration process, it could be about who to develop partnerships and affiliations with, and so on and so forth. And the whole brilliance of this is that it actually, through artificial intelligence, you can sift through huge amounts of data, you can interact with Saad in real time, you can ask questions and be fed information around how you can go about setting up a business in as short a time as possible. And what I also thought was very interesting around this is the collaboration that they've created. So if you think about Saad, it's really a joint initiative by Smart Dubai and by the Department of Economic Development, and then partnered from a private perspective by IBM through our Watson technology. So again, an initiative that shows how you're driving the cross-agency collaboration across two agencies here and partnering with a private enterprise. It's also something that is very well targeted to citizens, in this case citizens being entrepreneurs and investors, and again powered by what I call innovative technology, artificial intelligence and cognitive in this specific example. So again, you see here an example of what Dubai is trying to do, the cross-agency collaboration, the leveraging of innovative technology, and focusing on really trying to address and make things easier from a citizen service delivery perspective. The next example, a little bit further from home, and this is really in the domain of skills development, really trying to tackle the unemployment challenge. So unemployment is one of the biggest challenges that we see within domains across the world. This was a big topic of discussion at the World Economic Forum, I believe it was last year. And what IBM is trying to do here is really develop a platform, we call it Digital Nation Africa, but the same kind of platform is being looked at for the Arab region, and then obviously for Europe and the United States as well. And the whole idea behind this is how do you upskill and train both young and middle-aged professionals around both business and technology areas. From a business perspective, how do you train them on things like entrepreneurship, risk-taking, critical thinking, those kinds of areas. And then from a technology perspective, it's around things like data science, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cybersecurity, IoT, data analytics, and so on and so forth. And the whole goal that IBM has behind this is to really partner with government entities and private enterprise across the ecosystem to try and create what we call new-collar jobs. Try and create about 25 million new-collar jobs, specifically within Africa across 5 key markets. South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Morocco, and the last one was Egypt. So again, this specific initiative is one that is targeted to Africa, but the same concept is being looked at for the Arab region and certainly being looked at in other parts of the world. In case you haven't, if any of you have traveled to Emirates recently, again, this is a big topic for the UAE and for the region at large. And if you've traveled to Emirates recently, what you may also have come across is LinkedIn offering skills development courses when you travel to Emirates. So again, we see this as an area where a lot more investments are going to be made from a private enterprise perspective. And again, as I said, we're looking at collaborating with companies because we truly do believe that to make the smart city vision come to life, it's not something that IBM can do all its own, but it's one where we have a strong value proposition from a data and analytics perspective, but need to collaborate and partner with companies around the world. The third example that I want to talk about is what we did in Rio. And this is a journey that started about a few years back in 2009, 2010. And it changes gears a little bit here. It's more around what IBM has been doing from a city operations and an emergency management perspective. Just to give you context here, Rio was back in 2009, 2010. They were hit in the summer by heavy rainfalls, typhoons that led to mudslides and significant loss of life and property damage. So I've got a short video. I'd like you to see it. It's a couple of minutes, and then from there, I just want to talk about a couple of key points around what IBM did at Rio. Please. No, there's a video there. You just watch it. Would you go back to the presentation? It's in the presentation. It's exactly there. I'll just quickly talk through a couple of things in Rio. So Rio was an initiative where IBM sort of worked with the mayor's office, with Eduardo Perez, the mayor there, and we really created what we call a command and control center. And it started as a very small project, a couple of different government agencies collaborating together, the police department, the fire department to really provide emergency response services. But over the last several years, it's expanded to over 30 departments now collaborating together. And one of the fundamental things that we saw was critically important in Rio was really the idea that Eduardo Perez had as being the champion and really leading this, from a mayor's perspective and bringing all the different agencies to collaborate with one another. So Rio was certainly an example of finding a champion within a government agency and leveraging his political agenda to really try and drive a smart cities project. I think we got it. I don't think we can find it, so we're going to pass on what's happened in Rio. But really, I want to sum this up by talking about what I think is probably the single most important thing when it comes to driving smart cities, right? And it all comes down to bold leadership. We've seen this in many cities. Rio is an example where Eduardo Perez took the leadership as a mayor to drive a smarter city agenda. We saw this earlier this year in Rwanda, where the president of Rwanda, His Excellency President Paul Kagame, is really driving a smarter city initiative across 15 different countries and bringing together the different presidents. It's certainly happening here in Dubai as well, right, under the leadership of Sheikh Mohammed. And if you really look at the vision that he has, it's about saying if we want to reach the people before they reach us, we want to save time, to shorten distances, to increase effectiveness, and to make services easier, right? It's that kind of a vision, strongly wrapped around focusing on the citizen, making the citizen happy. It's about building the broader ecosystem. He's created an organization called Smart Dubai several years back to really drive the charge behind the Smarter Cities initiative. And it's really trying to evangelize the different departments and all of them having a strong sense of developing smart cities. Our whole point of view on this is really very simple from an IBM perspective. We believe it is time to act now to build the smarter cities. We also believe that it is a collaborative approach that IBM needs to take on with other private and public enterprise. And we also very strongly believe that it's all about the citizen, and certainly here at Dubai it's about making the citizen happy. Thank you so much. got it to work, we can see it now. So this is real. You have the volume. No, I don't think it was going to work today. Wasn't meant to be, but look, I'm going to be here for part of the day. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer. But again, I truly do think this is a partnership, and I think this is a great forum because we have people from different organizations, and let's try and really work together to make Dubai a smart city.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? Please.
I think just a general remark to you and also to the other colleagues who presented earlier, it's going to be great if there would be some sort of a communication with the small businesses who are not really into Salat or IBM or Cisco, who are able to manipulate all of that, but who can be part of the ecosystem. So I think these sort of presentations are great, but there needs to be more of integration with the market, if you like. That would be useful in advancing this sort of approach.
Yeah, look, I totally agree, and I'll tell you where some of that, I think there's got to be a broader-based effort to make that happen, no question about it. Where typically IBM has engaged is in specific deal pursuits, right? So when we see specific opportunities, we're obviously looking, because, as I said, IBM doesn't bring everything and anything from a smart city perspective, so we're always looking to collaborate, we're always looking to build those partnerships, but again, if there is a broader forum to try and create an ecosystem of partners, I think that's certainly in the best interest of the city, for sure. Please.
I'm Mohammed from GDB. This initiative you talked about, SAG, could you please elaborate more? Tell us more about it, please.
Yeah. So look, I mean, this I'll tell you. So this initiative within Dubai started off as a pilot project, primarily targeted at how do you drive economic development, right? And so this one was created. They created a persona called Saad. There's huge amounts of information that were fed into the database, which is Watson, which looks at this from a cognitive and an artificial intelligence perspective, and can really feedback. If you are an investor, you're looking to set up a new business, or want to get information on how to go about it from a licensing, from a process perspective, it can feed you all kinds of information. Now, what's happened also now is because of how great a success this was from a pilot project perspective, they're now moving towards actually creating persona, and I'm forgetting the name of that persona, which will answer all kinds of questions you may have about Dubai. So if you're a tourist coming in and you want to know, what are the best sites to see, where should I stay, where should I go and get my meals, those kinds of things. There's an agent. It's an online virtual agent. You can get it on an app, or you can get it, go to the website and get it. But again, that's the vision that Dubai is on. We're certainly partnering with them on that. At first, obviously, we worked with Smart Dubai and both the Smart Dubai and the Department of Economic Development to make this happen. But again, the whole collaboration is across those two government agencies. IBM is bringing in primarily our technology, our Watson technology, which is based on data analytics and
for the use case.
For the specific use case, exactly. But that same use case is being extended to any different role within. You could be a resident, you could be a tourist, you could be a local over here, but they will be something like a Saad where you can go in, you can ask questions in natural language, in Arabic or English, and it will be able to give you a response real time on how you can explore the different areas that you're interested in. That's really what the whole concept behind this is. And it started off literally as a small initiative purely for economic development, but given the success, they're now really looking to open this up and take it into anything that a citizen may be looking for in the city.
It would have been good if you had made a demonstration.
We actually have a small, it's like a robot. So quite often when we go to trade shows and conferences, we often have that. Just couldn't get it in time for this event. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.